From Texas, Congressman Ron Paul. Good morning, Congressman Paul.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine.
How's your son doing down there in that race in Kentucky?
Well, it looks like he's ahead and doing quite well. So he's pretty optimistic at this point.
Seems like a nice young man.
Yeah, he takes after his mother.
Oh, he does? He's a conservative? Is that what he is?
Yeah, well, he calls himself a conservative constitutionalist, which is not a bad term. Some people think that means you believe in liberty, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I wondered what does it mean. Can you explain it to me? Or?
What, a conservative constitutionalist?
Yeah.
Well, conservative means you retain the values that have been around for a while, and indicating that what we ought to do is conserve and follow the Constitution as laid out by the founders.
Wonder why we can't get back to doing that.
You know, there's a lot of talk about it. What has happened is everybody takes the same oath in Washington, and nobody loses any sleep over not following the Constitution, but it seems like there's a great bit of diversity about how you interpret it. But I think this has come from the educational system that we've had for 40 or 50 years, that people have been conditioned to reinterpret the Constitution, that it has to be modernized, but you don't have to bother amending it. So a certain group have come along and said the General Welfare Clause endorses the welfare state, and the commander-in-chief, when a war is declared, has the authority to do whatever he wants, whenever he pleases, and starts any war he wants. And so they endorse the welfare state and the warfare state, and there's no endorsement in the Constitution, and there's no requirement, to amend the Constitution. The Congress either ignores it, the President, writes laws, he writes executive orders, and they become the law. The courts rewrite the laws, and they're in the legislative business, and the Congress too often just sits still and doesn't resist it at all, and allows the usurpation of all the congressional authority that it was given.
Do they do that because they're driven by special interests and money, or is it more malicious?
No, I think it's philosophic. I think.
Oh, you do?
I think they, because they've been taught that. Take, for instance, economics. Economics in this country has been Keynesian economics for, since the Depression. So Republicans and Democrats both endorse economics of Keynes, which means that if you have trouble, the government should spend more money, borrow more money, and print more money. And that's how we get into our trouble. But both parties basically endorse those views. It wasn't the Democrats alone that brought about the bailout. The Republicans started it, when Bush was still in office. But that's a philosophic issue, and I think it's a philosophic issue of what the role of government ought to be. And they believe, and there's so many believe that the role of government is to take care of us from cradle to grave, and it is to police the world because the burden has fallen on our shoulders, and we have this moral responsibility to spread democracy and our goodness, even if it takes bombs and guns to do it.
Philosophical implies to me, maybe wrongly, but implies to me that they're making these decisions based on principle, and when it comes to politicians and principle, I can't reconcile that.
I think that's a tricky question because I think it is all philosophic, but everybody's philosophical. It's just whether you have the right ideas or the wrong ideas. But then if you have a system where government gets big and you have a military-industrial complex and a welfare state, then the special interest, this invites the special interest. If you have a government that's very, very limited in scope and they're not capable of passing out the favors, then you're not likely to have so much temptation for the special interest to take over. But interventionism, where government assumes this role, it sets the stage for all the special interests to come in. And, of course, one group says, well, yes, we need to do this to take care of the poor. But it just happens that when the welfare idea spreads, the wealthy are able to get more welfare than the poor.
Don't they always say follow the money?
Do what?
Don't they always say, though, follow the money, the adage?
Oh, yeah, sure. The money will do it. This is why I think the founders understood this. This is why they tried to put strict rules in that the state shouldn't be involved in doing this so much to try to keep the special interests out. But that's why being a conservative constitutionalist and going back to what the founders tried, I think is a
You know, we're talking with Congressman Ron Paul, who ran for the presidency. You going to run again?
No, I haven't made that decision. I haven't thought too much about that. That's a while to go yet. I haven't said absolutely not, but I right now have no plans to do it.
When you ran, did you think you could get elected?
Not really. I mean, I think, you know, and I used to kid, I said that's the risk you take when you put your name out there. You know, you can get elected. When I first ran for Congress, I was talking the same way, and I thought it would be virtually impossible to win even a congressional seat if you were going to defy the status quo and promise no goodies for your district and only promise to limit government and try to restore a free society, that there wouldn't be an audience for that. So to my surprise, there was. And right now, I'm a bit surprised that as many people are paying attention as they are right now. But the country's in desperate straits, and maybe looking toward a freedom philosophy is the right thing to do.
Kind of interesting how enormously popular you are, particularly with, it's interesting on this basis how enormously popular you are with young Republicans and others, and yet not with the Republican establishment. Is that because they don't like your foreign policy views or what?
Yeah, I think, you know, the older people, they have trouble, you know, being objective. They get locked into place, and they're part of the special interests. And young people have always been generally more attracted to principle, and they like consistency, and they're more idealistic. And they're also, the young people right now are facing a major problem. It isn't like when the baby boomers were moving into adulthood, everything was doing pretty well, and the country was still wealthy and jobs were available. Now the jobs aren't available. The country is poor. Wars continue. Deficits have to be paid for, and personal liberties are under attack, perpetual war exists, and young people say, hey, what's the answer? And freedom is the answer, and freedom does bring people together. Not only am I pleased with the young people being attracted to this, there's some polls that show that even independents are very interested in this, and even progressive Democrats who like the idea of protecting personal choices and are more supportive of a less aggressive foreign policy. So these ideas really do bring people together, and I think young people recognize that more so than those who have been locked into the establishment.
Your son Rand feel pretty much as you do about everything?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to have strong disagreements, you know, within a family, but we have our disagreements, and certainly on tactics we would have disagreements, but the basic thrust of limiting government and balancing budgets and have free markets and property rights, and along these lines, I think we would have strong agreements.
The Obama's, I guess it's accurate to describe it as heavy-handed relations with Israel. What you view of that?
Well, I haven't really noticed any really heavy-handedness. I don't think there's any doubt about what our country would do, you know, if Israel has a problem. And I think sometimes, you know, these disagreements are more superficial than they really are.
It's a dog and pony show, or?
If push comes to shove, you know what will happen. But I'm sure there's people in the administration that are concerned that the Israelis may act unilaterally and go in there and start a war with Iran, which would not help the world. It wouldn't help Israel. It wouldn't help Iran. It wouldn't help the Americans. I mean, it would be a disaster. But, you know, there's always this threat that this could happen, but there's also the threat that we'll condone it, too. So, I mean, I guess it would be horrible.
Finally, Congressman Paul, the president's going to Wall Street Thursday to talk to them. What should he say to them?
He shouldn't even probably go, but if he's going to go, what I'd like to hear a president say is, you know, we believe in free markets. We don't believe regulations can compensate for an out-of-control Federal Reserve system. The regulations should come through the rules of the marketplace. If you mess up and you get into a place where you're bankrupt, you should declare bankruptcy and get out of the way, and nobody bails you out. And if you commit fraud, you ought to go to jail. But regulations per se are not the answer. The SEC is actually a farce. I mean, they were created to prevent the problems of, you know, Goldman Sachs. The information about Goldman Sachs has been written in books. since it occurred. And yet here, politically, they come and they explain, oh, no, it's all Goldman Sachs' fault. Well, Goldman Sachs is responsible, and they have been treated in a special way. But we need somebody to say that the marketplace can regulate a lot better than the SEC and more government regulations. We need to regulate the Federal Reserve is what we need to do.
Congressman Paul, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.